A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John chapter 15 verses 1 to 8. Passage taken from the Message version of the Bible. I am the real vine and my Father is the farmer. He cuts off every branch of me that doesn't bear grapes, and every branch that is grape-bearing, He prunes back so that it will bear even more. You are already pruned back by the message I have spoken. Live in me. Make your home in me just as I do in you. In the same way that a branch can't bear grapes by itself, but only by being joined to the vine, you can't bear fruit unless you are joined with me. I am the vine, you are the branches. When you are joined with me and I with you, the relation intimate and organic, the harvest is sure to be abundant. Separated, you can't produce a thing. Anyone who separates from me is dead wood, gathered up and thrown on bonfire. But if you make yourselves at home with me and my words are at home in you, you can be sure that whatever you ask will be listened to and acted upon. This is how my Father shows who He is. When you produce grapes, when you mature as my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord. Reflections on the Gospel according to John chapter 15 verses 1 to 8. Remain in me as I remain in you. Let us try to understand the meaning of this phrase, remaining in Jesus. Consider the example of those in love. When one is in love, he or she always carries within himself or herself the loved one. He carries her in his heart. That person dwells, lives in him. Everything reminds him of this person because he has her inside him. This is what Jesus says, remain in me as I remain in you. Intimately united to him as the branches to the vine. Sometimes we hear old people remembering their husbands or wives who have died long time ago. When someone says, so many years have gone by but my husband always remains in me, she is not just talking about the memory, the regret, but also about the whole love story that has marked her life. And that time can never be erased. That's what dwelling is all about. Remain in Jesus is about a deep relationship, an intimate communication of thoughts, emotions, dreams, and choices. From these emotional experiences, to remain in Jesus, to remain in His life means to remain in His way of thinking, loving, and acting. In other words, Christ has implanted Himself deeply in my heart so that I cannot do anything that does not agree with Him. St. Paul in his letters repeats the refrain of being in Christ 164 times. In the letter to the Galatians he writes, it is not I who live, it is Christ who lives in me. They live in symbiosis, in tune, one dwells in the other. This is the belonging that Jesus recommends to us because if we do not dwell in Him, our life does not have the Spirit of Christ and we cannot produce the fruits of the Spirit. And what are the fruits that Jesus expects from us? St. Paul tells us in the letter to the Galatians chapter 5, the first fruit of the Spirit is love, agape. This term agape defines an unconditional love which seeks above all the joy of the other, even of those who have hurt me. He does not think of himself. Secondly, joy, peace, patience, knowing how to adapt to the needs of the brother and sister in every situation of life. Kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are the fruits of the Spirit of Christ. And Jesus makes a proposal to us. My Father will be glorified if you remain in me and bear abundant fruit. The vine does not produce fruits for itself. It produces fruits for people to enjoy. In the same way, when Christ lives in us and we in Christ, we produce fruits of the Spirit in abundance to see the people of God happy.